Hello, 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 my wonderful friends, you good souls, you emerging butterflies. It's Monday, which means we have another amazing episode of Pink Pixels lined up for you. Thank you. I'm so glad to see some lovely faces in the chat. Well, names, but I imagine faces every single time. And some of you, I actually do know your faces. That sounds really creepy when most of our interactions are on the internet. But you know what? That's fine. Because here, when we're in this space, we get to have honest conversations, and we also get the chance to just approach each other with vulnerability and fun. And that's what makes the gaming space, especially more importantly, the communities that we build here, so freaking valuable. I love that time and time again that when we have conversations here, we keep validating the experiences that we have, that the relationships that we build, that the challenges that we overcome, that they are just as valid as they were if they were to experience anywhere else in our lives, whether it was in person or at a convention or online or in a game. Every experience that we have is valuable. It is influential. It is something that we can choose that helps inform us of who we are, who we want to be in this space, and how we want to interact with people. And we bring all of that good-heartedness, the best of who we are, into this space. And I want to thank you all. Chat, you all are fantastic. I see some really great, kind people here. And also every time we have great guests, because by having a good community, we allow ourselves to keep having good conversations that push us forward. And sometimes it doesn't feel like they're big, massive steps, but that's because every week we've normalized this behavior of having good conversations. We've normalized the behavior of creating spaces that are welcoming and that we challenge ourselves, that we acknowledge that we have room to grow, and that we have that opportunity to listen, to find out where we might have erred and where we can continue to be better people for ourselves and others. And I want to thank you all for that. That's not easy. It's definitely not easy at the end of a Monday when you've probably answered way more emails than you want to, and you've got Discord messages piling up, but you still choose to come here because this is a place where we have fun, where we get to be people, and we have very great places to be with that. Now, when I say great people, I've got two amazing great people. I'm just going to give them that title. They are great people who we are inviting tonight into our conversation. And that's right. That means that of people, plural, we have two people joining us, not just one, but two. So we're going to have double the joy. So I cannot wait. Let's go ahead and dive in right away into this mix. We've got our two friends, Yali, and of course, Indiana Jones. So I had to say it. Come and say hello to us. Introduce yourselves to our lovely audience, even though they probably have an idea of who the two of you are. Yali, give us the details. Come on.
I don't know where the southern accent came from. I spent one day in Kentucky, and all of a sudden, it is absorbed into my body. Hi, everybody. My name is Yali. I'm pretty sure if you've been on the gamehers social, you've interacted with me once, twice, thrice. A couple of times. I do social media for here at the gamehers, and I also do a lot of work with the ambassadors. So if you're in the chat, ambassadors, what's up, y'all? I do a lot of community stuff, so I chit chat with y'all. I share the stuff that you do. I amplify. I hype y'all up because y'all literally breathe life into me, and I can't do what I do without y'all, and vice versa. So it's good to see everybody and be back on Pink Pixels. Last time I was here, I didn't work for the gamehers, and now I do.
We're bookending experiences. I love it, Yali. It's always such a delight to have you here, and I always want more Yali time in my life. So this is a gift. And also we have Indy, Bethany, Beth, all the mixture of names. Say hello to us as well.
Hey everybody, I'm super glad to be here with the two of you. What a stacked little group we've got tonight. But my name is Indyburgh, also go by Bethany. I am the player development specialist for the United States Esports Federation, which is our U.S. national teams that compete globally. I also work for the gamehers, been with them for about 2 years now, and do lots of different things, but primarily I've worked on collegiate and running some tournaments for them, among lots of other things, which I'm sure we'll get into, but sort of a jill of all trades in the esports.
I love that. The two of you certainly have picked up a nice little collection of odds and ends and highly skilled different jobs. I kind of want to say, you're like, we've done a lot of things. I want to start with the very beginning. of why gaming, why esports, especially knowing that here we are in the month of June, here we are celebrating Pride Month, here we are being women, femme presenting individuals in this space, that it has not always been a place that screams, this is for you, especially with some of the other gamers. Despite those barriers, you all have not only made it a place called home, but you have staked a ground and invited and pulled others into this space. Why did you ever enter in the first place? Where did that fire begin? Yali, I'm going to force you to answer first.
Yes, of course. I've always felt othered my entire life. It probably speaks the fact that when I was born, I was probably the only girl cousin. There's always been a sea of boys. And so I've always had to be the other person and just everything that I did. I played sports, played on boy teams. So I've always just been the other thing and everything. And so I got into video games, same way I got into anime through boys, and just kind of been like, okay, so why am I the only girl here? Just they were just like, girls don't seem very into it, and then just kind of like, oh well, we gonna get them. We just gonna bring them over here, and like, do you have time to meet our Lord and Savior video games? Knocking on doors and giving out pamphlets, and just recognizing like how influential it was for me and how it shaped who I am as a person, and recognizing like how fun and cool it can be, and then meeting others like myself and just recognizing like there is a space for us. It's just, the more people are there, the more the space grows, and the more we align ourselves, and the more we just, it means something. And then I just always got to see like there's a specialness of the specialness of being the other, but at a certain point you go like, okay, this, it gets kind of like lonely. And then when you find those rare places where there are more people like you, you're like, oh, this shit is dope. And you want more of that. And so it's like, give me some more of that. It's kind of like crack like. I need more of that.
A little more addiction, please.
Give me more of that. Give me more of that, please. Video games always teach us that, being different is always something special and important and powerful. You learn that in anime, you learn that in comics, you learn that in pop culture in general. Like, just being different is important and special. So why not just find your people and do more of that? So yeah, I've always just felt like video games gave me that home to be special and find more special people like it. So why the hell not?
Yes. You're a very special person, but you're so right. Like finding other people, you're like, I'm not alone. There are other people, and you want more people, and the more people we get into it, the better it becomes. So I think that's such a good reminder of like, at the end of the day, like if anyone takes something, like the simplest message is you belong here. That's the simplest but most important message. You belong here. You belong here in this world. You belong here in our community. You get to have that space. Indy, how about you? What was your journey like? What was it like being young Indy?
I haven't heard Yali's before.
Oh yeah.
Young Indy. So you asked me this beforehand, so I'll tell the chat as well.
Yes.
Indyburgh comes from Indianapolis, which is Indiana, and Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. So I grew up on the East Coast. I now live West Coast in California. But when I started to solidify my name, I wanted something that felt homey. And that's really where I started gaming, like as a kid. So it wasn't weird for me. I also grew up with two older brothers that they had the computer. They're typically playing a lot of sports games. But when we went to Blockbuster, we're going to age all of us right here.
Yeah.
We'd pick out games together. So it was like a normal daily, or a weekly routine at least, right? To go play games and get something new. And I didn't think much of it, but I did think of it as a hobby much more than anything growing up. It wasn't seen, at least in my eyes, as something a woman would do or grow up to have a career in or get a salary to do. I thought of it much more of the programming side, the coding side, which is not what I do at all. Or the art side, graphic design. And so I didn't end up studying anything near that, but it was always something that I was doing regardless. So I'd have other jobs. I actually went to school and became a caseworker. I was a social worker for women in intimate partner violence. So I was on the hotline for folks that were going through it, and then receiving folks coming into a shelter as well. And then I was a refugee caseworker. And both of those jobs really burnt me out pretty quick after school. They're just very intensive, as you can imagine, emotionally too. But I was going home after those long shifts and I was playing games. And so something in me started to click and go, you know what? There's like production going on here. There's teams. It's a lot of coordination. These things aren't just happening without people's energy. I'm starting to dig in more, and that's really what led me to, out of just being curious and out of a love for it, start to think out of my desperate situation as well, starting to look for like what else is out there. And I also grew up in a family of typically all musicians, so we're sort of under this umbrella of do what you love and make it work. And I think that was also in my head. I knew what I was doing at the time, just like I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it forever. And I wanted to fall in love with my work in a way that made me feel like I could retire here. I could do this for a long period of time and still be a human being and still get joy out of life. So I started to think what would bring me that kind of fulfillment. And it led me back to gaming, which is really like a full circle. For Yali, it sounds like too, like your childlike sense of curiosity and wonder, all of that started to come back. And there are days now that I think like, wow, is this really a job? Am I? Sometimes it doesn't feel like it after doing other things, but it is. And there's so many career pathways even now emerging, and it's so exciting. But yeah, it really just came from a genuine childlike love of it, and then following curiosity till you get to a weird rabbit hole, and here we are.
And here we are. I love that you're doing my job for me, pulling the threads of commonality. So if you could keep that up, I'll just sit back the rest of this time. It makes it so much easier because I love hearing the stories that you all have, because it's fascinating, and it reminds me of how each of us, everyone in this space, has such a very different journey. Sometimes when we get into these spaces and we're starting to like, hey, there's all these different types of people here, we kind of like almost in a reverse exploration and appreciation of the diversity of our stories. We're like, everyone has this kind of experience as we go through. Here's the typical route, and to see the commonalities and also differences gives us a lot more leeway to appreciate and give more flexibility when we try to understand and begin to approach people and want to connect in who they are. So I love that. I think that's so important. But you're right to tap onto that nice little string of curiosity, because I think in a lot of careers, especially when you're going into a space like this, that is often driven by more than just, I want to get paid, right? This is not always the career of financial stability. To be blunt, right? Like, well, I know, right? Or it would be, competing against Bill Gates as like the top earners in the world. So we're choosing on this, and to seeing some of those chords that are struck, a lot of like curiosity, where we see passion, where we see family or relationships kind of getting strung, giving us that chorus to say that's the song that we want in our life, that we're all kind of singing together. And I quite like that. Now, you come from a family of musicians. Are you also a musician?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see. I have a couple guitars hanging here.
Oh, dang.
I have a saxophone somewhere. Yeah, but of course. And when it came time to like really pick something, I derailed. I was sort of primed to be the musician, and my family was like, "What the heck is anthropology?" And I was kind of like, "I don't know. Doesn't it sound so cool?" I'm also a Sagittarius, so I'm sure that played a role in it. I'm just like I gotta figure it all out. I want to see what's out there.
Yeah.
And so that really drove me again, like that curiosity. Is like, I already know music and I love it, but I don't know if that's what I want forever. I want to see what else is out there. And so like, you mentioning things like curiosity also, for me, like the way that I've succeeded in this space is really like showing up as myself. Like all the things that I've done prior, the anthro degree that sounds so random. I did a TEFL certificate, which I taught English outside of the country for a few years. But all these things have added up to get me to where I am now. Mm-hmm. For example, the United States Esports Federation, where I work now, they like that I've lived in other countries, can work with visas, can do logistics. I'm free to travel. I can speak multiple languages. I'm not tied down to one space, and I have some cultural awareness from these degrees, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just my love of esports that brought me here. There's competition in all of these roles when you're applying. So like showing up with what I had and my strengths was actually what actually fulfilled a lot of what they were looking for, which unknowing to me, like I'm just doing what I like. I'm just following my curiosities. But they all compound, they all build on each other. It's the same for anybody in this space. You really got to just like show up as yourself, follow those curiosities, and that passion of those things is just going to show that recruiter or whoever you're trying to get to so much more than just like, I love gaming. Like there's so much more to us as people that can bring to the gaming world, and that we need some diversity and some maturity in these other areas that like honestly, doing whatever you love and then jumping into the space is so much better sometimes than just like getting a degree in esports management at this point. It can bring so much more to the table.
I love this. I often tell my students I ban the word passion because I'm tired of hearing the word like I'm passionate about video games, because you just said like I love video games. I love video
energy.
games. Yeah, more passion,
Yeah.
more energy, more passion.
Energy.
But because it's an over, like, we understand, like, if you're in the video game space, it's probably because yes, you love video games, you're passionate about video games, and that's good and all. And for both of you, I see you bring so much more than just your love for video games into what you do. And it's that reflection of taking the time to understand who you are in addition to like this one thing that you really enjoy, and how you pull all of those combos together that allows you to be a unique voice in this space. Now, Yali, I know, of course, we mentioned you do some with the gamers, but that's not all you do either.
Yeah, no. It's fun. Again, me and Bethany, I don't think we ever really like talked about our stories, but I also come from like, so my family came from Puerto Rico. They came to America, and a lot of them are just like strong, hardworking women who took care of men, because that's kind of like our, cultural thing. Uh, Mom had a degree in accounting. I suck at math, so my mom's like, "That's not your job." So,
It's an easy way to figure that out.
this is like, "Oh, you don't know what you're doing." And then talked back. So mom's like, "Law degree sounds perfect for you." I spent most of my school career doing student government and debate club, because that's what my mom wanted me to be, was a lawyer. And then I secretly thought I pursued writing, so I did poetry behind her back and like all the writing things behind my mom's back by doing the things she wanted me to do. And then like my first job was teacher's assistant, and I taught art to special needs kids. And then my second job, I was a legal assistant. And I quickly recognized I fucking hate law. Like, I hate everything about being a lawyer. The paychecks were cute, but I hated everything about being a lawyer. I ended up dropping out of high school, so I never got my high school degree. And then I got into a program that did help you finish your high school degree and then do college. And then I decided to pursue journalism, which I didn't do any real journalism in school. I did poetry and creative writing, and then I did journalism for a long time. And I quickly recognized like this is real heavy when you're talking to people about like, social justice and queer issues and all those things that are very deep and serious. And like, this is heavy. I'm a fun person. This doesn't feel fun. And then just be like I said, like, Beth said, like, just being yourself and people recognizing like you know a shit too much about anime and crossing into anime and pop culture, and then people recognizing like a shit too much about gaming. Do you want to transition? It's just like too many things.
I like that we're referring to measurements as like just a shit too much, just way too much, like a common measurement tool.
Like I'm probably primed for a game show. I just haven't gotten my way there. But yeah, and then like just being like a person who, what I found in all of it is like I want to help people, but in a way that doesn't feel heavy, because I'm like very empathic. Started producing podcasts, and then linked up with my friend Matt, who like Bex knows. I call them my idiots, Matt and Trash. my special idiots. Producing podcasts, and then that led into like event planning, and then we do our Cospalooza, which is like a big cosplay dance party. And it's like anywhere I can be creative but help other people achieve their dreams. And so when I got the opportunity to do the ambassador thing here at the gamehers, it was like another way to help people kind of achieve their dreams, but also in the gaming space, and kind of use some of that creativity. It's like, okay, let's look at what you do. Let's develop on it some more. There's one ambassador is like, my ultimate goal is like, I want to get to Marvel, but I don't know how I get to Marvel. It's like, well, actually, I happen to know somebody from my time from back in that field. It's like, okay, all the weird experiences that you go through life all end up helping you later on. It's like, I never would have thought when I was doing pop culture that would somehow let me help this one person in the ambassador program, or it's so funny how you find yourself going through all these experiences, and they all end up weaving this like very Charlotte's Web
Mm-hmm.
of whatever the word Charlotte picked for the day. I don't know, one word was bacon, but Wilbur was a pig. It was like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, there's some levels to that we could critique. I like these kind of like gestures because it kind of showcases like the two of you did not have a straight path. Like even in Indy, as you said, like there wasn't like you didn't do like an esports management degree, check that off, go straight into it. Like the two of you have probably more different job titles than I know of. Like I could probably find 20 random people on the street, and the two of you combined have probably done more. But I love that. Like that leads into your curiosity, but I think that also shows why you thrive in the space of gaming, because this industry is young. The job titles that exist here are not necessarily the same ones that existed 5, 10, and definitely not 15 years ago, at least not to the same degree of depth and even the structure that's been built out, and and even today, right, how inconsistent it is in expecting like what one tournament director does compared to like what another tournament director handles and is supposed to manage, right? It's so vast, but being comfortable with saying, I don't know what the job title is, but I'm going to follow what I'm interested in. I'm going to start finding the right people. Like that is, how do we describe that? A step in the dark? Like, do you all just feel really comfortable playing like hide and go seek all the time of like, where am I going to find people, but with jobs? That's what it sounds like to me, but which is exciting. Like, obviously the two of you, like peekaboo, you found some really great places where the two of you are thriving. People love you. They love working with you. Your work, people just recognize where you are. Yeah. Like infiltrating, moms adding, like similar with the weird job titles. Like there's no straight path. How do you know then when you're at a spot where you're supposed to be? How do you know when you stop and saying, this feels different from that lawyer assistant job that I did, and I go, no, that's not for me? Or it was really fun to teach abroad for a while, but now I need to do something different. How do you know when it's time to move and pique that curiosity again? I'll leave that open to whoever feels comfortable first.
For me, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say,
No,
I
no,
think I think for me, I knew I needed to switch writing. I stopped feeling like it stopped sounding like my voice, and it started sounding like someone else's voice. Again, like writing for me was the thing I did behind my mom's back when I felt like I was following my own path instead of following the lawyer path that was decided for me. And I remember having a conversation with my son, and at the time he must have been like 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying like, I don't want to write it anymore, but it was my dream. And my son, I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he remember him saying like, I don't know what I want to do. And that's okay. Like, you are so wise, 10-year-old child. Who raised you? But I know, like, but just remember him saying like, it's okay not to know. It's okay to dream again. It's okay to have different dreams. And like, I think that's that feeling, like you're saying, like a step in the dark. It's okay to like not know. It's okay to be okay with the unknown. And I think a lot of times we have like this anxiety feeling of like, we have to know everything and be prepared and all these other stuff. But like, that's sometimes the funnest thing about life is not knowing, and like for this 10-year-old kid to be like, I don't know, like, like, that's all right. It was okay with me. It's just like, bruh, you're so, yeah, like, I don't know what else I'm going to do after I stop writing. And I don't know what my other dream is going to be when I give that up, especially when I'm at the very top of where writers and also anime nerds are supposed to be at. Like, everyone's like, you ask them right out of college, they automatically apply for Crunchyroll. Like that's where they're supposed to be, and I'm already there.
Yeah.
And so it was like already super scary. But it's just like I took from that lesson of being like, it's okay not to know. So it's not necessarily knowing you're at the place you're supposed to be at. It's okay with being like, it's okay if I don't know. Being comfortable with that unknown, and just being like, you'll know. I feel like for me, it's better to not know than it is better to know. I'd rather be in a space not necessarily know like this is if it fits or doesn't fit, and feeling certain. Certainty is much more. I'm sure that's a trauma response. Someone who's a psychiatry degree will be in the comments like, "Girl, talk afterwards." But no, I just feel like it's okay to not know. I'm much more comfortable like taking a shot, trying it out, and be like, well, if this doesn't work, that's okay. I'm totally okay with it just not working than being hung up with like this has to fit. Like it has to be okay. Like it has to be okay. It doesn't actually have to be.
So the darkness works with flexibility. You can't be rigid.
Yeah. I can't. You can't. I think especially in gaming, you can't, because gaming is always moving around and changing. And so if you think that you're going to fit in this square peg, girl, tomorrow is going to be a hexagon. Good luck.
Like, dang it. Why does it keep changing? Quit evolving. Indy, how about you? How do you play this game of hide and go seek as you find out like what jobs are out there? How do you know like what your next steps are or feeling in this unknown space?
I think now that I've gotten older, I can recognize that it's this feeling that I've given as much as I have to give to that whatever X project or org or dream necessarily that I've had. And I've also learned that like dreams have timelines. Like there's not one dream you're born with all the time. I mean, I'll speak for myself here, but my dream, I've had dreams at different phases of my life, and when I complete something, I start to dream again. And I think that's okay. And I think normalizing that instead of having one dream that we're dedicated to our entire lifespan is kind of crazy. Like life changes. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So to hold on to one singular thing, I think builds frustration in myself. So I want to sort of let go of some of that and let myself continue to go, what do I want to do? Like life is really fucking short. And so I'm allowed to keep dreaming and thinking of things, and I change as a person. So what I think is cool and what I think is fulfilling is going to change with myself too as I get older and, experience life. So, I've had different phases, but living in Latin America, that was a dream of mine, and I fulfilled that. But that's not something I wanted to do forever, turns out, right? There was a point in time where I felt like, okay, I'm ready to move on and try something else. And I didn't know what else was, but I had enough know-how to say, I'm going to end this and then risk the next dream because I think it's worth it. But yeah, there's a little bit of a shot in the dark. But from my experience, and now I'm a lot less attached to things like that because every experience where I have let go, something better and more fulfilling has come from that. So it is like a dark, scary place sometimes, especially when you're younger and you're told you got to do all these X, Y, these things to be successful. It could feel like you're failing when you're doing that, or like quitting or leaving or changing things. But in reality, a lot of the times, life's just taking you to a different direction where you're actually going to be more fulfilled.
I think you're speaking to a lot. I know like that probably message was intended for like high schoolers and college, but I'm like, I feel that. That was nice for me to hear.
Good.
Right? But like the idea is like write your goals in pencil. Like when you've done it, erase it, put something else on your list to do. And it's such a good reminder of that growth. How we keep pushing ourselves further. What's that next step? How do we continue to be that sponge? And that is. I love how these kind of flow together. But I want to broaden it out because what you're talking about, one, is so good advice, and how we kind of approach ourselves. We give ourselves that flexibility. We be brave, and we keep taking those steps forward. But in the gaming space, especially within our industry, it's not often steps that you take alone. So how do you know when you find good people in the space? Because there are some bad actors. There are people who are also just not helpful. They're not terrible. Like most people aren't like malicious, like, ha, I'm going to destroy people, right? Like there are a few. I saw your face there. There are a few. So feel free to note those. Right. But there's not everyone that's out there that's going to be the helping hand for you. How do you find those right partners that you want to keep working alongside, that you can dream alongside? And how do you know where are the people that you go, okay, enough of you. I'm going to take 5 steps away. Because that's hard. That's hard, especially when it's the first person that reaches out to you. That might be hard to say yes or no, and you just grab on to whoever interacts with you. Well, that sounded really sad, but it's true. Like when we're trying to break in, like the first person that might offer you an opportunity, whether it's a good opportunity or a bad opportunity, we might just say yes because we're desperate to get to where we want to be as quickly as possible?
I actually had that experience, and I got a lesson in doing it.
Oh.
Thankfully, because I worked with the right people. I fell into the hands of the right people, and I learned a lot from that first interaction. My interaction from leaving social work to applying to esports jobs landed me a gig with Connected Camps, and it was run by two professors out of UCI.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was actually an anthropology professor, and the other was informatics. And these were two really highly sought of women. They were authors. They were respected in their field. I kind of didn't know who they were stepping into this. When they offered me the job, they candidly told me, first off, back to what we were talking about earlier, was that the biggest difference between me and all the other candidates were that everybody else was esports focused, and I was the only one applying that wasn't an esports specialist. That wasn't my main thing bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
They liked that I was bringing in things about youth, working with different cultures, being able to do management. I had organizational skills outside of all of that, and that's why they picked me. They said, you can learn esports, you can learn all the technical stuff, but we can't teach you all of that. We can't teach you how to work with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're bringing you on, and you can learn those other skills. I thought that was great that they told me that up front, because that taught me a lot about myself, and it gave me a lot of validation in a space when I was a little bit like green. The other thing was, when I negotiated with them, they were going to fly me out to California and relocate me from Pittsburgh to LA, which was a huge step, right?
Yeah.
And they were, so it was like, I didn't know, but I was like, I'll do it, I'll go, I'm in. And they were like, wait. They're like, I literally got an email back from them that was like, do not take the first offer. They're like, come back to us, negotiate more money or something, like stipend, health insurance, like look at the contract again and come back to us. And she's like, I'm doing this because women don't do this enough. They don't negotiate. They typically take the first thing. And as a strong woman, she was really teaching me like what to do in that situation. And I did. I went back to them. I asked for $10K more on my salary and a different health plan. And they were like, cool, we'll do half of that. And then we'll also do your contract 6 months to get the other half if you stay on, right? And so I learned a lot just from being upfront and kind of failing through it, but I fell into the wrong hands, and that taught me every job after I've done that. Mm-hmm. And I know how to advocate for myself now even more because I've been in this space longer. But I always tell women that story now too, because it is really important, like to advocate for yourself, to go in and negotiate. The worst they can say is no when you're already like in the hook and you're on that contract line. Like you're allowed to negotiate, you're allowed to speak for yourself, you're allowed to ask for different things, different roles, different titles, and just have conversations before you sign anything, which to me was brand new. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was a key moment for me that really changed how I interacted with other jobs going forward. And it's really about having a boundary with people before you know them well enough. I didn't know those women, but especially now when I work with men in authority, mm-hmm. I have a very firm boundary going in with what I expect. And I shoot high, like always shoot high.
Yeah.
It's okay to go lower, but advocate for yourself as much as you can.
I think
how they respond will tell you kind of what kind of person they are too.
Oh, so you win kind of either way. Like this was such a great lesson, like on empowerment, like ask for what you deserve and then some, right? Like know your value, and it doesn't hurt to ask, mm-hmm. But you're right. Like even if you don't get the benefit of getting what you want, you learn more about how they respond to it. Do they scoff at the idea? Do they choose not to respond? Or do they answer in a conversation like, okay, I hear what you're saying. While we can't do that, here's what we can offer instead. Like those are people who are going to help problem solve with you, that are going to see where you're at and help grow, and are going to be more invested in there than what can you do for us, but it's what can we do together. Oh, that's good.
Ooh.
That's good.
Trademark.
So I like that. Like, so like the one thing we could put down as that is like, find people who empower you, who teach you and encourage you to speak up for yourself and what you need in a space. Because I think especially when we start out, because we say yes to whatever we can. We say yes to volunteer opportunities, and we know like for a lot, like you're going to do volunteer opportunities, you're going to do internships. Not all of them are going to be great paying. But it's opening up those doors of like, what can I ask for? Well, if I can't get pay, what can I get for instead? Can I get additional credit for something? Can I get a shout out? Can you get me a connection? Can you take me to a convention? Right? There are a lot of things that are equally valuable that I think sometimes we forget that, well, we can't always ask for more money. We can ask for other things.
Oh, yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
I don't want to cut the conversation short, but like, are there other things to help find the right people, whether green flags or red flags to say like yes or no?
I think for me, so I got my big chance just like I said, I think I said before, like just someone taking a shot on me, and he, it was a man, but this was a person of color, and
We love good
I
allies.
know
They come
we
anywhere.
love allies. They come from everywhere, but he said I can't pay you, but I can teach you everything you need to know, and he literally taught me everything that I needed to know. Um, and so as I moved like through my career, I always took every opportunity I could take, whether it had paycheck or not. I was like, well, what can you teach me? What can I learn from this? And then when I had paid opportunities, I always had that experience of everything I learned from each person. So when I got into a situation where I was looking for like $1 billion corporation and recognizing like, okay, they got $1 billion, they should be paying me and everyone else that I work with money. It's just knowing like regardless of where you are, recognizing like what your talents is and like what that's worth. Um, and not being afraid because they're this big corporation that means that you are somehow smaller than them. Like people need to recognize like corporations don't get to where they are without people, and you are the people. Whether you're the person working for that corporation or you're the consumer buying the product or watching the service or whatever it is, like people have more control than the corporation itself. And so like always remembering that, and that's one of the lessons that I learned from my first mentor. It was just like people have more control than they think. And so when it came time to being like, yeah, I need more money. Like I know what I bring. I know what my work is, how the community responds to my work, what that does. And I know what it does for the bottom line. And so if that means taking that to somewhere else, then that's what it means. And then also being just like inadvertently I always end up inadvertently becoming like HR by accident and just being like a motherly figure because I am somebody's mom, and just hearing the complaints of the other coworkers being like, well, I don't make enough to even like buy ramen at the end of the day. I'm like, dude, you should be getting paid. We all need to be getting paid. Why don't you say that to your direct boss or whatever? I don't want to lose my job. Well, they don't make money if you don't work. Don't be afraid about what it is that you bring to a space. And if you feel scared that you can't talk to somebody, then you're not at the right space. Like you're not dealing with the right people. And I think it's kind of like what Beth says, like you have to be not afraid to advocate for yourself, because if you don't do it, they're not going to do it for you. Like their job is to keep you there for as low as it costs so that they continue to have, be in the green and beyond whatever color goes after green. I don't know. But, like that's where it's supposed to go. So I've never been afraid to be there's been times where I've been at the very top of the top of the top, looking dead at the board and being like, I want my money. Like this is what it is. And not being scared, even though they want me to feel like I'm the 5'1" Latina with no degree, and you should be just glad that you're here. And I'm just like, nah, I know how this works. Like that's not how it works. Well, and so you have to advocate for yourself because they need me. Like,
and you're right, because there's this within workplaces, obviously, like there's hierarchy, but there's also that added layer of like perceived power, of how much power we think other people have inherently, right? Like, and that can come in other places of not just like the structured, like you have the job title of supervisor and that makes you over me. And so, yeah, there is some power over that, but there's also like some inherent or perceived social power. Like you look like you belong here versus I'm the one that's not. Or like to Indy's point, like I'm the only one without any sports background. Am I really the right fit for here? Right. Where we perceive ourselves, where you didn't see that as power, but they saw that as bringing something really valuable and influential into that space. That can prohibit ourselves or have others prohibit interacting with us because, again, it's that perception. What value do you think you bring? And what does that really do? Because that's hard to have an accurate, sometimes, perception of ourselves if we surround ourselves by people who also cannot see us accurately.
Yeah, you have to always walk into spaces, regardless of what it is you do. Like, it doesn't matter where. And even if it's not, take that for if you're in a dating situation, if you're like anywhere, if you don't walk in feeling like I am the shit, everyone's going to see that for you. You have to be able to walk in with, even if you're faking it till you fucking make it, you have to walk in and be like, I am the very best at whatever I'm doing. I'm the very best girlfriend. I'm the very best boyfriend, partner. I'm the best writer. I'm the best esports person. I am the best at this. And you're not going to find anyone better than me. You have to be able to give that. Otherwise, they're going to see it from a mile away, take advantage of you until there's nothing left. And then you're going to be like, well, how do I get myself out of the hole? Well, essentially, you're kind of the start of the person who got you in the hole in the first place. You got to be able to like bring that forward. And I think that's some of the things that I sometimes tell the ambassadors is like, right now, you are the very best. You bring all the talent you have. Like, you are it. You got the best charisma. You do it your way. Keep doing it the way you do it. Ain't nobody else gonna do it but you that way. And that's what we want to market. You as you. And that's where the starting part is. Be happy and comfortable with what you do and focus on that. If the second you start thinking about what other people do or start downplaying who you are, you already fucked up. Like, you already fucked up at that moment.
Oh, I've done that a lot then.
Well,
Admittedly.
I'm always telling, and that's why I'm always telling you like how fantastic you are. Like, you're amazing.
I need no angel and devil on my shoulder. I just need Yali constantly in my ear the entire time. I just want to wake up each morning and have like affirmations from Yali as my morning alarm.
Hey.
Yeah. Let me know when I can purchase that on my Android app. Thank you.
It's free. It's free for you.
But how about you, Indy? What are moments that help you validate or see yourself very accurately to be like, yes, what I am bringing is value? How do you find that same kind of confidence in the spaces that you're in?
I think a lot of it just comes from experience. And that's why I would highlight, have as many as you can before you jump into stuff like that. If you are insecure, it's for a reason. It's okay. But find something that you can really like pin to. And that's why I was so grateful that they just told me straight up why I was sort of that pick, because it helped me understand. And like, I knew that about myself already, but I didn't know if other people would value it the same. And once I realized that, it was so validating to me that that was something that took me a lot further. And I would also say, like, it matters over time who you work with, like the reputation that you build as a brand yourself. Because unfortunately in esports, regardless of how many orgs and teams you work with, you're still you. And the network and community is so small that it really does compound over time. And so I feel confident with maybe one outlier that I feel like I failed on. Which was, I've worked with brands that were reputable throughout my time, and I've left the ones that felt cringy and bad or hurtful to the community. And the longer you stay in those that are sort of against the community or look like they're failing from the outside, it hurts you long term, and it's hard to come back from some of those. So I try to, regardless of the money, regardless of what's really like what the people see, just take it in stride and compound. Like, what I'm doing is making a difference. What I'm doing is impactful. And keep on that, like, regardless of how long I'm in it. I want my legacy to be that I advocated for the right people in the right communities and actually helped grow the space in a way that was impactful beyond just winning and losing games, right? So that, I think, is more self-validating, but that's something that you have to work towards when you're new and you're looking at options. I would always say, regardless of money, hopefully if it's close, to pick the brand that's the most reputable in the space, that has a history of treating people right. You can Google these things pretty easy. There's a lot on Reddit. There's a lot on LinkedIn. You can figure out, you can talk to people in your networks and figure out how the management treats people and what they've done in the past. And that over time will compound into a lot of confidence if you work with the right people over time, because your reputation will sort of precede you as you want to keep doing things. But I think where I failed, I took a gig that essentially, like, you know, it failed the scene like hard, and I felt like a failure to the scene at the same time, but I didn't do my research, like, frankly. So if I had done that in hindsight, if I had looked at who the org was prior to years that I wasn't around, I would have learned a lot instead of just jumping in and being excited about an opportunity that was presented to me. So now more than ever, who I work with really matters to me, regardless of how much money. And that's why I think Yali and I both, I take as many contracts as make sense for me. You know, I get to work remote and I get to travel a lot, but at the same time, like, I'll make the money that I want compounded by as many entities that will bring it to me. I have a baseline essentially of what I want to make. But I want to work with the people that will actually make a genuine impact in the right way that I am like morally aligned with, and that validates so much for me, and what I want to do next too. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
It
I think it's
does.
super important when you're looking at
You
the
know,
space
you
as a
know the
whole.
answer is going to be yes. Come on, come on. No, but I think this is important. And while it feels like you're like, yeah, it's easy. You can find it on Reddit. You can find it on LinkedIn. I think when we see people hopping into this space first on, they're not thinking about these companies as employers. They're thinking like,
Right.
oh, I've seen them like as a fan, or I followed them, or I've been to their event and I enjoyed it. And there's a very different experience of appreciating it as a customer or a client or a fan versus I now am an employee. How do you take care of me? How do you keep an eye on my hours? How do you make sure that you're creating environments that are ethical, that encourage good growth for everyone? Right? That's harder to be aware of. And we can put on those blinders from time to time. So at least you've only done it once. So congratulations. I feel like I've made many more bloopers in my own life. I feel like I've run out of fingers at that point for my career. I make a mistake of faltering, and then I learn after I trip over something like, oh, that's what a stick looks like. Now I will know moving forward.
Yeah.
But some of us learn differently. Okay. Yeah. Some of us are just we're experiential learners.
Right.
but good and bad, like, and I'm glad that you meant, like, sometimes because there is a one, or there's going to be a situation that as soon as you realize, like, this is not where I want to be, I don't like the steps that I've taken in this. It's good when you can flag that, because you're right. Sometimes you will find yourself in spaces, even especially if you're starting with like newer organizations that are starting out, their reputation isn't as built, or you're taking a leap of faith. But you're right to like, don't stay there, because toxicity can normalize. Just like how we mentioned at the beginning of this, like we try to normalize a good welcoming space. You can get used to bad behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to have us take a small pause at the conversation because we're about an hour in here, and I love this. I'm so enthralled. I want us to come back. I want us to talk about like this personal branding, because I feel like this is a new era of professionalism now, of saying like, how do you tell your story? How do you stand out? How do you build your reputation that is unique of any company that you work with? How do you make it stand the test of time so that way you can continue to do what you want to do as you walk through this darkness of gaming? So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a breather. When we come back, friends, all right, all of our good chat that's hanging out with us, remember, all you have to do is type hello or anything in chat. In fact, for many of you, you have already done so already. We are doing a Zenni Optic giveaway. This is our last one of this season, so make sure you get your chance to. So as long as you type something, starting from here, as we get over into our little 5-minute water break, we'll come back, we'll do our giveaway. Hearts work as well. I love that. So continue to say hello, and when we come back, we'll find out who's getting our Zenni Optic, and we'll continue our great conversation. We'll see you all in 5. Hello, good friends. Welcome back to Pink Pixels. I see so many people saying something, or I want Zinni, or Zinni Optical is the best. It's Leonie. Hey, Leonie. What's going on? That's right. So we are back from our break. We have two amazing guests. We've had Indy and we've had Yali, and we've been talking about being in this space, how we navigate it, finding that right fit, because I think that's something that we're all challenged with. No matter where we are in our stage of life, we're trying to find out where we belong and where we want to go next. That is a common thread as we keep pushing ourselves further. But before we get there, we are back here in this space and we've had so many wonderful chatters. And as you remember, right before we left, we are mentioning that we got to do one more Zinni Optic giveaway for this wonderful evening. So Zinni Optic is a wonderful friend of the gamers. We have some nice little glasses giveaway. They are not prescription, so don't worry too much about it. So it makes it a lot easier. We're giving a little glasses giveaway as part of the partnership and connection that we have with them. So how we're going to go ahead and roll this sucker out is, remember, if you haven't already, this is your last minute chance to type something in chat. It can be anything. It can be your favorite emote. I do wish we were on Mixer because then we could type GIFs again, but that has never happened. And I miss that so very dearly. But go ahead and give your last chance, or even if you have, come and say hello to us one more time. I love the word something. It's just slightly snarky enough. So as we get into this, I love it. We're going to go ahead and do a 10 countdown, and then we are going to go ahead and announce our winner for this evening. So 10, 9, 8. I feel like I should have gotten like an actual audio because it sounds less exciting when it's me counting. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And our winner is X-Rayleigh. All right, congratulations. Yali, you gave me a face for a quick second. I didn't know how to read that. That's Allie? Okay, never mind. We're going to have to roll this again. Allie, you can't win then, right? We're going to do this again. Everyone has a second go around at this. Congratulations. Allie can't win. Allie's not allowed to win. So we're going to run this sucker a second time. So good news for those of you who typed something and you're thinking maybe now is my chance one more time. So we're going to give this another go. Sorry. Hey, Allie. I love that. I love that. So, all right, we're going to do another little pause as we get our little things set up. And I'm going to actually message real quick as we set that up, just to double check. All right, let's try this again. In our countdown, our winner, second time around for our Zinni Optic Pink Cybot. Congratulations. Yay. So the earlier yay that you said earlier for Allie, congratulations. Now it is for you. So in this, if you could be so kind just to DM me. So I'm going to say hi in chat. If you can DM me on Twitch, I will get you that form in detail so that way we can make sure that you get your form to fill out so we can get that package to you. Congratulations once again. All right, let's go ahead and kick back over into our wonderful conversation. As I mentioned, we've got two wonderful guests joining us. We've got Yali, we've got Bethany, we've got all of our good voices here in this space. And I want to talk about where we picked up last time about branding. So sometimes when we think about branding, we think like big companies or like esports teams or organizations. But now, as we've mentioned, this is the era of personal branding, of telling your story, of figuring out who you are in this professional space. Basically, everyone kind of has to be their own mini marketer. What does that look like for you? How do you figure out, how do you tell your story and build your reputation, especially with so many of these things happening nationally and online? How do you get people to know who you are and what you're open to doing? No pressure.
Like my reputation has been a troublemaker.
I love that.
Which to be like not thrilled about it, but now I'm like, I don't care. I think the most important thing about branding, especially someone who's been like working in social media for a while and then like now doing community stuff, is just like be as authentic as possible, but also trying to personally define what authentic means to you. And also being comfortable about what it is that you share. As someone who's like hyper extrovert, I'm like not afraid to share pretty much anything. The only thing I don't share is just like what my son looks like, because my son is old enough to like have an opinion. As a 14-year-old going on 15, so he's kind of like, don't do that.
Mom.
um, but like besides that, I'm very comfortable, like, you know, talking about the things that I've been through, you know, as a queer person. I'm comfortable talking about, you know, being someone who survives, you know, sexual trauma and a victim of, you know, sexual violence. I'm comfortable talking about, you know, being a dropout and things like that. Those things are like, if I was introverted or if I was who I was 10 years ago, I'd probably be like, oh my God, don't pay me any attention. But like, I'm just like, the more I share about myself, the more it makes me more relatable to people. It makes it easier for people to identify, like, the thing about her that separates her from someone else in the space is that she's very open and honest and vulnerable, and she is willing to share her experience. I'm not gatekeeping how I got into the space. You know, I'm not like this is, you know, what's the joke, like, you know, share the sauce. Like, I'm not, the sauce isn't the secret with me. Like, I'm willing to tell you exactly how I made the sauce. This is the recipe. That's where you buy the ingredients. You know, like, I'm very like, you know, because I want more people to be in that space too, because like when I was around, it was just me and maybe one other person. And now it's just kind of like, you know, the more the merrier, and it makes it easier for someone who comes up after me, and then after and after. Like, I want that to be an easier experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so really you have to start, it starts with being like, what are you comfortable with sharing? What is your goal with your branding and what you're sharing? And then it goes, well, kind of, how do you express that? Is it through photography? Is it through music? Are you going to do a lot of wordy posts? Are you going to do, like, how do you want to express that? What is your expression? And also, again, making sure that you do it authentically, that you're not copying what's successful for someone else. It's successful for them because it's authentically them. And you can't emulate that. I mean, you could try, sure, but that doesn't make it, you can't sustain that copying. You know what I mean? Like, it's only going to work for so long. And then what happens afterwards? You single white female that and kill that person, and now you're them. Like, it's so harder to do. It's not the same. You can't keep doing that. Sorry, you can tell I do a lot of pop culture.
Don't apologize. Don't you dare.
I'm right. I'm so right for a game show. I am just ready. I'm also great at Quizzos, so if you need a Quizzos partner, I'm ready.
That's good. Plug yourself in for that. That's important.
But yeah, like, really think about it. Like, again, it probably gets really frustrating for people. You're like, I've been doing this for so long, and where's the results? But it's like, it's something I tell my son, it's something I tell like my younger cousins, it's something I tell like to the ambassadors, is like, sometimes you have to take the long way around to get to where you want to be. But in that path and in that time, that's where you gain your experience. That's where you gain all the things that you've been through. That's where it makes it the most you. And then whenever you make it big, whatever your definition of big is, or whenever you make your goal or your result, that's when it feels the most rewarding, because you did it the way that's most authentic to you. You didn't have to copy someone else's flow or sauce or whatever. Like, you just need to keep it that way. Otherwise, you made it quickly, but like, how does that feel? You know, like, how does that feel to you? Like, yeah, maybe for me, it took me a long time to get to where I am right now, but I can honestly say, like, I'm very happy how long it took me. I did it all with no degree, but yeah, maybe it would have been easier if I did it, if I, you know, got my high school diploma and I got my college degree. But in all the time that I took, I got to spend more time with my son. I got to do more time with the kids that I helped raise and all that other stuff. And all of that stuff helped me be able to engage with different communities, because I know what it's like to be a single parent. And I know what it's like to do things the hard way. And I know what it's like to, you know, how we say it from Philly, like, I know what it is to get it through the mud. I know how to do it in ways that are not the traditional way. And so that causes me to be a different type of thinker, because I don't do things traditionally. And that makes the work that I do really different. So, you know, you have to, when you're doing personal branding, really focus on the personal part, because that's where you're going to shine the best.
I love that. That takes a lot of reflection to find out, like, who am I and what do I want to share with other people and to what end? Indy, how did you develop and figure out, like, what's your branding story?
I feel like mine is still, it's been evolving even recently because I think I made a mistake early on attaching myself to orgs during my career, which I found really pigeonholed me when I wasn't with those anymore, right? So now I have a completely different header. Everything that I use on socials is me, and my header is my name, and then I'll typically use like logos, which I can change obviously
Yeah.
within those banners time to time. But the thing is that esports changes rapidly. Like I thought my dream was to work with Cloud9, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that was over, it was like, oh, well then am I just done now? Like, no. Like of course I'm like, let's
I
like
can
the pinnacle, right?
retire. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, like I can like retire now, right? But I think a lot of people getting into that space would be like, that's the dream. Like you did it.
Yeah.
Well, when that did it ends or budgets change or things that are unexpected, like esports is gonna happen to you at some point. At some point, like that one thing or that one org, even if it's just their reputation changing and you don't want to be associated with them anymore, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't really count on an org or something to be tied to. I think that's kind of scary. The best thing you can do is what Yali just explained, which was to really find yourself and advocate for the things that you want to be represented by. So I love sort of like I love sports on top of gaming. So I love to like post, basketball and skating and X Games stuff along with like crossovers to esports and gaming because I know there's other people like me out there that like both worlds. Or I
Mm-hmm.
love the stats and stuff about the WNBA just as much as I love the stats about Cloud9 White, right? Like those are just things that merge for me. So I like sharing about a little bit of both. And when I think about my branding, I really just sat down for like a week and just as much as I had the energy to do it, I went on Canva, used a Miro board, all free, right? And you can go on there and just like play around.
Mm-hmm.
And I just decided like, what color palettes do I like not associated to anything I've ever worked for. What do I like? What kind of text do I like? I started to pop in images that I just would find around the internet that I just like thought were really cool and just sort of like made a vision board of what I thought a brand for me would look like. And then I handed that to a designer friend and said, what can we do with this?
Yeah.
What can we do with my name? What can we do with my website portfolio? How does it like look like me through these sort of images, right? Like I'm not the person that can put it all together, but I'm the person that has to give that vision to the person that can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not artistic enough or savvy enough like I'm not to build your own website, the best you can do is sort of represent yourself through some sort of like board online. Super easy to do, and it's actually very fun once you sit down and try it. But yeah, it's just like bring it all in. The music, the X Games stuff, the whatever niche weird thing attached to you. I love tech and like futurism and AI and that kind of stuff too. And like that, there's got to be other people, right, that like have some of these
They have to
crossovers,
exist.
right? That's what I started thinking, right? And of course they are. I talk to my friends. Yeah, like those other people are attracted to similar things and parts of those things, and they'll start to follow you. So I would say don't pigeonhole yourself with an org or some like idealistic something where you made it. And it's the same with topics. Try to keep it as broad and like unique as you are.
I think that's such a smart choice. Like figure out what it is, because at the end of the day, you're not trying to connect with everyone. Like when you're posting about like the WNBA and you're also talking about Cloud9, like that is not meant to help resonate with someone who plays League of Legends. Like we're talking two very different worlds here. And what you're doing though is you're trying to find the right audience, people who have those similarities, that want to know why or how you approach things a particular way. Like, and that's so important. Because it's when you're playing this game, your branding is not marketing and having a huge social media account. Like you don't need to have, 1 million. You're not competing against Elon Musk on Twitter, right? At the end of the day, it's not what it is. But you are trying to figure out how do I know and make sure that these platforms are being leveraged to allow me to do what I want to do.
They'll connect you with brands that way too, right? Like just you posting over time, things that you think are quirky and weird to you, but you just love them. Eventually you post that enough, those will draw attraction to you because you're small, you're growing, you're interested, you're passionate about that thing. And before you know it, you've got some weird crossover happening that you sort of never imagined. But we're seeing even more and more of that now because especially, I'll bring it up again, but like sports and esports, traditional sports and esports, there's so much I think like left undone still, especially when you talk about like women. The women, how they're treated in esports and how they're treated in traditional sports is very similar. And they're going through a lot of the same issues. And we're seeing a lot of like, especially now with, like the Caitlin Clark issues and things like that in the WNBA and all the discussion, it's very similar to what we've been dealing with narratives in esports too. And I think they're important to share, even if you're unknowing or you love one or the other. But yeah, again, like that, those will lead to opportunities. The WNBA actually just did, like, at LA Sparks here in Los Angeles, a WNBA night where they brought like middle school and high school girls to come to the stadium and play the NBA 2K together.
Yeah.
Which is like, they've never done that before, but more and more we're seeing gaming and sports sort of mix and mingle because people are talking about it. And you see a lot of professional athletes just talking candidly in media, like, yeah, I play on the plane, I'm playing my Switch, or I'm playing my Xbox at home, and I'm using Madden to learn about the stats of the other team before I actually show up to play on the field.
Yeah.
And I think marketing and managers are starting to, like, make these connections. And a lot of it's just people sharing, people talking about what they do in their free time.
I think that's such a smart take. Like, how do we continue to look at other spaces to learn, to collaborate, especially with, you're right, esports and sports have so much in common, and the parallels we see with women in sports and esports and how we handle that dialogue, the critiques and commentary around it. How do we continue and provide inspiration to younger generations as they get in? Like, there's so many things. And if we were to ignore or put that barrier up, it's like, well, now we're all on this journey alone and we're going to make the same mistakes and move at the same pace instead of like amplifying and speeding this process up because we can kind of ping pong back and forth from each other. It's a choice to be inefficient or efficient. And I also think this is really important because the two of you really kind of showcase, when it comes to really telling your story, it is recognizing all of these different variables, because like one thing alone isn't your story. Like being queer, like there are other queers, individuals in a space, right? Like, or being a woman, like they're at least, I know 5 other women I can easily name off the top of my head, like, so it's not like a unique feature on this end, or even like dimension or age, like, all right, we're not the only ones our age in this space. But it's surprise, but it's this combination of who we are, the interests we have, the approach that we have. And when we bring it all together, that's what makes us unique. That's where we get to bring something different of like, well, I have this unique background also tied with my love for this thing that I have. And I also have this experience with this particular event or background. And when we bring these together, that's where I bring something that's very different and hard to find in other people. That's kind of more how you tell your brand story instead of just, the one note in the one industry and the one organization that you're interested in. It's so much more. Now, Yali, of course, especially with your social media, you probably see this a lot too of, how people are interacting with brands directly. You manage, of course, with the gamers and theirs. But Indy, you probably see this as well as with with any of your companies, people probably tweet directly to them at times with opinions, questions.
No.
People feel real comfortable sharing any thoughts that they might have.
I'm doing it myself. I think more people are willing to. It's definitely a form of like advocating for yourself, of just being like, hey, like I'm me. Hi, I use your products, and this is what I do with your products, and you should work with me. Like that's a great form of trying to advocate for yourself, because it's like social media now is like a direct line with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's times when people don't recognize like. It's a direct line with the person who works their social media, which that person might have no power at all. So, it might be an intern. It might be a kid who just came out of college. It might be someone with influence or no influence at all. So just be kind to the person you're tweeting at or Instagramming. Just be kind. That's all I want to say. But it's more aligned where people are able to kind of leverage their social platforms and showcasing their abilities and showcasing their marketable skills and what they can offer to a company. I remember when I started out using social media and trying to figure out like how can I market my skills to someone who could do makeup, and was like, okay, I know how to use makeup and I know how to do social media and stuff like that. And at the time I was like, my thing was going to be like, I'm a hot girl who is a nerd. That's my brand.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ooh, don't play with me, Beth. Like that was my brand. And so it's just like, and I would spend time doing looks and all those other things and tagging the companies and what products I would use and stuff like that. And like, that's a very niche thing. It's like a nerd who does makeup, but actually if you quiz me, I could answer your questions. And like that would get me noticed. And then companies would send me when they do niche type products, you know, like a collab with Pac-Man or Tetris. They would send me those products because they knew I could actually talk about the product in a way that was really authentic. And so now we're seeing more of that where people are saying like, yo, like I know everything there is about Pokemon. And so when ColourPop does a collab with Pokemon, they're actually reaching out to influencers or, you know, streamers or stuff like that, or actual Pokemon players who play the trading card game and saying, here's our collection, what can you do with that? And that's a different form of marketing that we haven't seen before, a different way of using social media that we haven't seen before, where companies are willing to kind of take the risk with some influencers, whether they're micro, macro, or, you know, on a bigger scale, and saying, what can you do with our product that we can't do ourselves? And so you want to be more creative when you are on social media and you are marketing yourself. Again, be authentic with what you do. Don't, if what you know is DuckTales or something, keep doing the best at DuckTales you do on social media.
DuckTales.
Listen, I love DuckTales.
No. It's great. That theme song, it gets stuck in your head real quick.
Every time. I did like karaoke one time. It was You're saying like, don't quit doing that. You know, like don't quit doing what you do. Someone is always watching, is what I've learned doing social media. Like even myself, as I'm strolling by and like paying attention to what people do, I'm always writing down like, okay, this person does cosplay really, really well. And so when we're needing more cosplay content, I can say, hey, we're the gamehers, we're looking for a cosplayer, like what you do is dope, like would you want to work with us? Like companies are paying attention to you whether you think they are or aren't. So like this is the perfect time, especially now when more social media is becoming a bigger platform and it's becoming much more marketable, to rev up what you do, push out that content, show them everything that you can do, and keep that shit up, because I promise you someone is paying attention at all times. Just again, the warning is please be nice when you're tweeting. That's all I'm gonna just be nice. Kind work.
Just be nice. Just be nice is the takeaway.
Just be nice.
Indy, how about you? Right, in this space with social media and telling your story and connecting with others, what has been your experience with it?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked for a lot of different entities, so I get a lot of the sponsor me, like out of nowhere. And then, you know, you always look, you're like, all right, let me check this out. And the ones that are always screaming sponsor me are always like the ones that just, they're not even ready. It's like they're not even trying. But that has been the case too. Like most of the time in esports or in gaming industries, there's budgets for certain types of creators to bring on. So there are budgets specifically for a micro influencer that has X amount of followers, some sort of mid tier, and then like your slam dunk, right? So just because you're small and you don't have this massive following yet, or you're growing, does not mean you're excluded. In fact, you're sort of looked at as an easier opportunity for them to get started marketing something. And so the best advice is that you need to stay consistent. So if you really want that to be part of your brand, you need to be posting consistently. If I look at somebody's page and I see these big gaps or they haven't posted anything for the last 6 months, it's a huge red flag. Like you're obviously not even engaged with your own community or your own brand enough to like bring in mine. And so even if you're just active, I would say even for professionals, you're looking for a sponsor or you're a creator that's looking for something, the best you can do is stay really engaged in the community on any platform, on something. Because unfortunately, if you're not, you're sort of like dead to this space. You're kind of nothing. Even professionals, like your LinkedIn is actually super important, because when that shift changes or you want something different and you've been out of the game for so long, even just social media wise, it's almost like you weren't there. And so coming back is really tough. So consistently posting where you're going, what you're doing, traveling, if you're going to events, like it's cheesy to a degree, but it actually really matters because it looks like you're active and engaged, which most people are. But you have to like, if you're introverted, you've just got to like bite the bullet and do it. Like I don't love it necessarily. Like it almost feels like I'm bragging about what I'm doing or where I'm going all the time. But at the end of the day, it's actually like if somebody comes to my page and they show up, what do they see? It's either nothing and just my resume, or I'm actually going to share some bits and pieces that make sense for that platform. And so that's what I try to do, regardless of the following on either platform. And that's what I'd encourage. Just try to stay as active as you can. and then your reputation will precede you. So if the way you're talking to people is rude or comes off arrogant, like people don't forget that super easy. The community is pretty small. It's the same for like tournaments and players. If you're a player and you're treating tournament organizers like trash, they do not forget. And a lot of those TOs turn into managers and gatekeepers of other things that you might want later. So it does really matter. A lot of the invitationals that I've seen happen, for example, that are sponsored or has prize pools, can really amplify a team or a creator. Some of them behind the scenes, it's, no, we don't want to work with them because they treat us terribly, or they are incredibly inconsistent, or they're never on time, or they are not grateful for these opportunities. They talk to TOs bad, XYZ. So how you represent yourself in the private messages and to the community, it doesn't matter. And people do want to work with you. Just gotta figure it out. You gotta figure it out. If you're not sure, ask somebody to review it.
I like that you even mentioned like not grateful, like bad attitudes are some of like the biggest turnoffs of like, I don't want to work with you anything. Right. This is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be in a job that people want to do. And you're here saying that it's trash, or you don't like this, or you don't like that, but you're not helping out with finding any of the solutions. It's like, why are you here then? Like, you don't seem to enjoy this. So you're right when you think about like this branding isn't just even in social media. It's how you talk all the way through. Yeah. It's how you talk in private messages. It's anywhere and everywhere. And it's such a smart thing of telling your story. Yali, I will say, I don't understand the extroverted appeal. So I was really connecting when Indy said like, listen, at some point you got to just do it. Cause like, but at least we've got two very different stories on the introverted extroverted spectrum. Like, so we don't know, but that's important because when some people hear like this is how you get to tell your story, some people are charged by that. They're excited, they're inspired, and they come up with creativity. And then there's others like they go, oh, okay, I have to remember to take a picture. And then we take 50 pictures and I'm like, I don't like a single one of those pictures. I got to take another picture, right? Or how do we tell stories? And I think people forget that there are a lot of ways that you can tell your story, even if you're not there. Because I think of people who are starting out, like even just talking about events, even when you're not there, of like, hey, you know what? I wasn't here, but the host that did this did an excellent job. Like you're still putting yourself in the digital space, and that's still valuable. At the end of the day, you're right. Like you want to be in the space where people are talking, which sometimes feel hard because you have to push yourself into that space, whether it's sending those messages or continuing to put those posts out. What is the one platform, if you could choose only one platform, that you would say be active on that platform? Now, the two of you might have very different answers because you do different things in this space. If you could have one platform, what is it?
I've got it, and it's not going to be the same as yours.
You're like already judging.
I already know.
That's right, because there's no wrong answers here. What is it?
No. I would say LinkedIn for me. And I would say one, because the network on there is incredibly valuable to this space in particular, or at least the field of work that I'm in, which is more player development, education, and like management. Yeah. And so if I want a gig or need a gig, that's where I would go to first. That's where I'm posting that I need something. And it's been consistently the place where I can find something faster than just going to like a hit marker or some random job post. If I post on there that I'm looking, I have 100 advocates all of a sudden tapping into their networks that I've never seen or connected with that can get me into conversations that I would have never found. And that's happened consistently. The other thing is that it's growing. It's becoming much more of a space that even creators are using to amplify themselves, and it's becoming more and more social media-ish. But on there, it's still, I want to post to that network where I'm going, what I'm doing, and staying active more than any other social media, because I know the professionals that will likely pay me are there. And so what I feel like is on there for me is like salary, consistency in jobs, and a network that would consistently build. But I don't see it as social media yet, but I still see it as somewhere that's like, it's probably one of the more emerging for this space.
That's fair. That's fair. It has been growing. LinkedIn has had its ups and downs and multiple iterations, but it is certainly been a place where professionals have always been able to have a conversation where they can develop. And it's for the gaming space. It's within these past, I feel like 3 years specifically, it has exponentially grown where people are like, oh, this could be for me. And it somehow takes a step a little bit further away from perhaps some of the very brash opinions that we see on Twitch or on TikTok or Twitter.
Yeah.
Slightly different take.
But they're like the CEO of a company or a COO even, they're not looking at my Twitter. They could kind of care less. My community might.
Yeah.
And I still want to build that. But if I'm looking for work and I want to build that consistently and I want to know I have a space no matter what happens to my contracts, that's the one that I will not give up and that I would consistently keep at least engaging on, so that people, again, like, I'm not dead. I'm not here. Like, I'm not absent. Yeah. I'm working. I'm doing things. I'm in the community, and I want to show that on there more than any other platform.
I like that. Yali, you got a different take.
Yeah, obviously. Which reminds me, I need to post my trip pictures on LinkedIn.
I know. That's what I was like. I was also thinking, like, I haven't posted on LinkedIn lately. No, good.
If there wasn't a legal thing going on right now, I would say TikTok. But there's this whole thing with the United States government and TikTok. So I'm done. And that's in like limbo, and I'm like constantly on CNN, just consuming all of it. But I was gonna say Instagram because I think Instagram allows you to do static media, short form media, and long form media. So it gives you an opportunity to show like all of your skill set as a content creator, and you get to show like from a marketing standpoint, like all the things that you're capable of. Whether it's like you said, if you're a photographer, if you do graphic design, if you do fashion, you do makeup, like if you do food, like it's for all kinds of content creation. I think it's the best for that. And since it is, Zuckerberg is doing his best to try to like, he's keeping an eye on what's happening over at TikTok. So he's like, so we're going to switch this up and make it the new TikTok is what we're doing.
Try to make sure like we're keeping on par as soon as we take them out.
As soon as that drops, we're picking it up.
I mean, the strategy isn't subtle, so you're right.
It's definitely not even a little bit. But I feel like, and for right now, the current iteration of the algorithm is pretty well organized to what people are looking for. So if you are someone who is more looking for, or at least from like the gamehers standpoint, when I'm looking for cosplayers, I'm looking for gaming or esports, the For You page is becoming more smart to like, this is the kind of things they're looking for. I'm not going to show them anything that isn't that right now. There has been a couple of times, Allie, if you're listening, cover your ears, where I've just randomly seen a butthole and I'm like, oh my God, no. Why is there a butthole on the timeline? What the hell? I'm like, Zuckerberg, please. This is not what I asked for. My boss can see this and think I'm looking at something when I'm not. I promise you. That's for my own stuff. But usually the algorithm has gotten very much better at being like smart enough. So like if you are in your niche and the company's looking for that niche, the algorithm's gonna do a much better job of showing that type of company what it is looking for. So like I said, what Beth has been saying, keep doing what you're doing, keep doing that consistently. It makes it easier for companies to find you that is what you're doing. So Instagram for the most part until we see what happens with TikTok. But don't ignore TikTok. Just know that TikTok is not stable right now.
Yeah, that's fair. We're holding our breath and we're seeing where the legality goes, and we also know this may take years as it goes through the legal system. So
it's going to take years.
It'll be wonderful as we hold our breath and
all go to LinkedIn.
Yeah, all go to LinkedIn in the meantime.
Work on your resume in the meantime.
Yes.
I haven't seen a butthole on LinkedIn once.
That's true. Never. I did have someone try to sell me tires once on LinkedIn, which was a bit unexpected. Tires and dating, which I thought, no.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I wish at least they had given me the resume so they could say like, it's an open position I'm applying for. Like if you're going to do it on a work professional site, you should lean fully into it. And it was like, you didn't put effort into this. Yeah, I'm not even a good cover letter here. I'm ignoring this. But I think this is the key thing, right? Like you need to know why you're on a platform just as much as like what you're choosing to share. What are you wanting to put it out there? Like whatever you're on, if it's LinkedIn or it's Instagram or it's TikTok, like these aren't personal diaries. You're using these as opportunities to tell your story, to help push further your own story, to work with people who have, I think, Bethany, you mentioned like finding those same values of individuals. And that only happens, those people can only find you if you tell them what your values are. If you tell them what your journey is and where you want to go. It takes a lot of voicing that out. And that's so important as we go through this, whatever platform we happen on. Now, of course, I want to do, as we kind of wrap up for this final thing, we've got about 9 minutes left, and I want to be cautious and respectful of time. We are in Pride Month. And of course, right now, it's very easy to go on any company social media site and we see the rainbows. And it is very good to have. Like it's this great anthem and celebration. And the overwhelming of messages is meant to make sure that anyone who needs to hear this message can hear it no matter where they are, no matter how far away they might be from hearing hope or belongingness or inclusion, that they can still hear it, because this is the month where we scream it. But and we need that. But of course, it shouldn't be the only time that it's represented. And I'm kind of curious, like in this extension, as we eventually one day move past June that will feel like 800 years and at the same time a week, because that's how time moves after COVID, right? We don't really understand how it works. How personal aspects of identity come into play, especially within the gaming space. Because in some other industries, we hear like sometimes we try to keep some conversations very separate, but identity, representation, especially knowing in the gaming space, how it is a form of oftentimes helping us express ourselves when we play characters, when we bring our competitive edge, when we build relationships, even professional ones, of what we choose to share about ourselves, or when we feel like we can't share aspects of ourselves, but those around us might feel like that they can because they're in a different situation. Maybe because they're considered like heterosexual and that's considered the norm. And that's why they're allowed unique privileges to be able to talk about their relationships differently than what others might feel. And so I wanted to open this up as we talk about like how we tell our stories. How do we tell these kind of new level, like, but also very personal stories at the same time in this professional space?
Well, I'm more introverted than Yali, so I think we'll have a different answer here.
Yeah.
So I tend to do it more in private. It's not that I'm ashamed of it at all.
No.
I'm obviously out on most of my profiles, and it's pretty obvious how I identify. And if you know me, I make it very clear. But I also feel like I'm someone in this space, maybe because of my age and just like things that I have been through, that I feel like I'm sort of a safety net for folks that are a little bit more hesitant or don't feel as comfortable coming out or having a conversation or bringing something up. And I always wanted my management styles and my tournament operated styles to feel like I was very approachable, and that regardless of whatever you needed to bring or share or whatever was happening, you'd come to me and I would listen and hear you out. And I would find some sort of solution or mutual meeting ground. And that's because like people have treated me like that in the space. And of course, we've all had negative experiences with people in and out of the space for various reasons. But I just want to be that kind of person, that somebody that doesn't feel comfortable sharing something but needs to, or has an issue that needs more one-on-one attention, can go to. And if anything, it's really like mentoring sort of too, like mentoring women and helping them advocate for small things. And as an introvert myself, like sharing the things that I've done step by step to try to help somebody. And I just tend to gravitate towards people that are similar, that are typically queer, or for whatever reason, we're all sort of like a magnet for each other. Like we find each other sort of anyway, or we feel some sort of like, I feel comfortable with you and I'm not sure why, or I feel like just the way you talk or express yourself makes me feel at ease and I can have a conversation with you without judgment. That to me is a huge win. And then from there we can talk about so many other things. But with my players, for example, I manage 2 women's teams for our USCF teams. And I candidly tell them, we're traveling to countries that, not always accept the way we accept in the US. But as your advocate, as your manager, I'm putting myself in the same position. I'm out and I'm queer. And if anything happens to us, we're like, it's on me. I'm there to be a safety net for you. I can guarantee your safety because I'll advocate it through and through. from the top down, I'm having these conversations and I'm ensuring your safety because I'm right there with you. And I think that just brings an ease to some of this, and I hope it brings larger change even on the global scale as we sort of introduce esports as this like invitation to whoever and whatever around the world. And it's tough though, like, I'm not going to bring up certain countries, but we know who they are. And
One that's
it's
recently
tough that we see a lot of that. Like there's a lot of it's just money, right?
Yeah.
But it shouldn't put players in an uncomfortable position. And I feel like I'm in a unique position to help advocate for some of that and say this player is welcome and they are coming and they are going to compete because we see them as such. So if anything, I just like making players feel safe.
I love that. I love that. Yali? Because I don't want to add any. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, no. I think because I get as an extrovert, I'm very much like, it is what it is, and you're gonna take it or you're gonna leave it, but I'm not going anywhere. So I grew up Catholic. A lot of people in my family are saved. And so there's always a point of contention about me being queer and openly queer and unapologetically queer. And so for me, I've always been like, whether you believe that being gay is a sin and what you feel like what you're doing is right, or if what I believe is that who I am is fine, you're either going to see me in heaven or you're going to see me in hell. And either way, I'll see you at bingo. Like, that's my hope. We're going to be at the bingo in either location.
Bingo's competitive. That's some serious stuff there.
Literally, like, you're going to see me regardless. And so I choose to live my life however I choose to live it. And so in all the spaces I've been, I've usually been either one or two of the queer people. I've been a lot of the intersectional for it, either the queer Latina or the queer Afro Latina or the single queer Afro. Like, it's always been me and maybe one other person. And so I think it helps me in those situations where maybe there is maybe more than two or situation, but I've always had like an open motherly energy, sister energy, or I think also being someone who has had identity issues where there are times where I didn't know if I identified male or female. And so I've never corrected anyone if they use male pronouns for me. I've always, if they called me dude or bro, I never corrected them because that also felt right to me. And so people always felt this like open energy of like, she's a safe space. It's okay to just be who I am around this person and know that I can say whatever I need to say and it stays between us. My home has been a shelter to people. I've been a financial safety to others, physical safety. I've taken a punch or two for someone when it needed to be that way. I've always been like, if you need me, I'm there for you. And that's truly what I've always stood for. It's just like, sometimes there's not enough of that in queer spaces. And I know that it's because of safety reasons. Like, it's sometimes legitimately not safe to be us. It's not even a selfish thing. You want to self-preserve, you want to self-protect. I've just gotten to a place in my life where I'm willing to step in for you, even if it's to my own detriment, to my own safety, just because I know what it means to have someone physically take the brunt of it for you. And so my hope of being loud and proud about, we're queer, we're here, all those things, is just like being loud about it makes it so that hopefully we need less physical safety because more people will feel comfortable being loud and proud. And so there'll be less uncomfortableness of being like, people will have to accept that we exist, that we are here, and either you get with the program or you move somewhere else. Because again, I'm not going anywhere. And again, the same thing, if where you land in your afterlife, you still gonna have to see me. Regardless of what your belief is or what my belief is, again, I'll see you at bingo, hold me a spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. We're here.
But those are my feelings. And corporate America needs to get with that too. It's just like, either you see us as a dollar or you see us as something, but you still see us, right? And so sometimes you have to take the wins as small wins or big wins. But yeah, for me, it's always been like, I've always known what it meant to be other. I know what the struggle is. And so my extrovertnness really just comes as a kind of my own self-preservation, but also as a safety for other people. Like,
of course,
you can't be that voice for yourself yet, don't worry, I'm just as loud for several other people. Don't worry. I'm like, I got you. When you get there, you'll be just as loud for a couple other people, and eventually we'll all just be loud as fuck, and then it just,
It'll be great. And I love that tonight, as we have all of these discussions that are not just over queerness or being women in the space or being professionals or playing video games or any of this. It's this idea of how do we make sure that we support ourselves and our own goals, and we do so for those around us as well. I love that we have had both of you on this show because you two have very different stories. There are similarities. There's some nice little common threads that we pull out, especially as we kind of see the things that push us forward or how we want to continue to help support one another, how we want to make sure that we are good advocates and we are empowering ourselves. But the way we go around it can be so unique, can be so different in our pathways. And that's such a validating experience when people come in and they listen here and chat to know, like, I don't have to take just their steps. I can see this as inspiration and know that when they're not lighting a pathway, they're lighting an area, and then I can navigate that path as it fits my needs. It gives us a lot more freedom. The two of you have given us a lot of inspiration and flexibility as we move forward, because one size does not fit all in who we are and how we want to approach. So I want to thank you both on being very, very open, very honest about your pathway, what has worked for you, and where, of course, you continue to challenge yourself, because that's where we put ourselves in all of us, right? Yeah, Ali's saying, thank you for sharing your stories, because it challenges all of us. Even, maybe I need to be more active on LinkedIn, and in small things, but also like, where am I seeing myself in my next challenge? Have I crossed out my goal? Am I ready to pursue that next one? How am I reaching out and I'm empowering the woman behind me so I can lift her up in this space? I mean, these are all points that you all have brought into here to help encourage us. And I want to thank you, because by giving us this variety, it not only tells us like, hey, these are behaviors we can consider, but it encourages us to find out, how do we create our own inspiration for ourselves and for others? So before we wrap up, because you all are amazing, we never have enough time, where can people follow you? Where can they find you? Plug in any upcoming event, any socials that you have. Let's go ahead and go down in the order for ours. So Yali, will have you go first. Plug everything, anything that you have. Let us know where we can continue to follow you and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so of course you guys can find me here at the Gamehers. Again, if you do anything social, you're usually talking to me. So hi, hello. I'm only really on Instagram, which is beautifully Yali, which is the thing on this thing. Overlay. Someone's gonna kill me because I didn't say the right word.
Way to go.
The overlay. And then I produce 2 podcasts. One is called Dragon Ball for Life. We're having our 100th episode coming up, which is crazy exciting. We have like a really big special guest, which is something I'm passionate about. I get to take some of my anime love and my anime connections and bring it on over and give y'all the sauce. Again, all about giving people the sauce about how to break into the anime industry, which I know is a real big passion for a lot of people. And then the other one is Annie, Are You Okay?, which is about a Star Wars podcast. So again, another big nerd thing. I have Star Wars tattoos. We talk about Star Wars and we're talking about the Acolyte.
Ooh.
So again, you can check those things out on Instagram. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is important, which I learned today. As Yali Perez, which I will post my vacation photos, because again, I learned that's important. But yeah, I'm always available. I'm always happy to talk about whatever it's, how to get in the anime industry, journalism, law, which not my favorite, but I'll talk about it if you want to know my law. And yeah, again, I'm always happy to just share and help anyone break into wherever they want to go to. It's always my pleasure and my privilege to help people just get to where they want to be. Perfect. And big shout out to my kid who's watching. Go to bed.
Yep. Go to bed. Take your vitamins. Eat your vegetables. All right, Indy, wrap us up. Where can we find you? What are you up to?
Well, it's easy. My handle is consistent on every platform. So Instagram, Twitter, Discord as well. And my full name on LinkedIn is attached to all of that. So I'm easy to find if you want to. My wheelhouse is really competition and working with player development. And so boot camping, things like that. I post a lot about sort of the back end of my job, and if you're interested in sort of the work and what it looks like, I travel a lot, do a lot of things in different countries. I was just in Indonesia. I'll be going to Korea with Kespa to do boot camping with some of our players. So just learning a lot from them. I try to post as much as possible, and then we have 7 titles, 7 teams for the USEF, and 2 of those are dedicated women's teams now this year that will compete globally. Our regionals happen July 25th. They kick off for a week, so we'll be posting a lot on those channels, but I'll be retweeting if you want to follow along and then support the U.S. national teams as we compete. I think we're competing against 100 plus some countries this year, so super exciting, but we're trying to bring home some gold medals, which is exciting. So the end of the year is really competition time for us, so stay tuned.
Heck yes. Heck yes. So many good things. So good, friends. If you've been excited, inspired by tonight, make sure that you give our 2 wonderful guests some follows across the board, because you're not going to be disappointed. This is going to be feeding you good social media content, helping you, growing you, get it in. It's a good diet. It's a good social media diet to put yourself on. So I encourage you. Good friends, if you haven't and you're joining us for the very first time, welcome. I appreciate you joining us for this very wonderful conversation. And if you haven't already, make sure you give the gamers a follow. This is not the only show. We've got a lot of great, amazing individuals who come on here, who play games, who also do other talks. It's a place where you connect with other people who want to continue to make this space better. So I encourage you, give us a follow. And guess what? We even have an app. It's called the Gamers app. It's really easy to find, and it's also filled with great individuals. So I encourage you to check it out. Now, we'll be back next week, so we'll see you all later for another episode of Pink Pixels. Bye, everyone.